the intersection with the air of someone who owned every inch of ground beneath him. The son of privilege, now a self-made millionaire in the tech world, he was used to walking past human suffering without so much as a second glance. But that night, something froze him mid-stride. On the corner beneath the sickly glow of a flickering street lamp sat a woman and two little girls. Their clothes were torn, their hair matted, their bodies trembling in the autumn chill. One of the girls clung tightly to the woman's arm, wide-eyed and silent, while the other rubbed at her tear-stained face with tiny hands. "Sweetheart, it's all right. Someone will help us," the woman murmured, her voice frayed by exhaustion. Logan's chest tightened. That voice, that face. He would have recognized her anywhere, even buried beneath years of hardship. It was Olivia Carter, the girl who had once been the brightest presence in his high school halls. Back then, her laughter had filled the classrooms with warmth, though it had never been directed at him. She was the girl he had admired from afar, the girl his peers whispered about, because she was black beautiful and unapologetically confident. And she was the same girl who had rejected him once, not cruelly, but with the weight of an invisible wall society had built between them. Now that same girl sat on the pavement, her pride eroded, her children hungry. Olivia Logan's voice cracked as he stepped closer. She looked up, startled. Her eyes widened, recognition flashing, before she lowered her gaze as if ashamed to be seen. "Logan," she whispered. The silence that followed was suffocating, filled with years of unspoken history. "What happened to you?" he asked, though he could already feel the answer in the pit of his stomach. Olivia wrapped her arms more tightly around the girls. "It doesn't matter. Please, just walk away." But he couldn't, not this time, not when the weight of her pain pressed down on him like a personal accusation. "You're not fine," he said, his voice firmer now. "Come with me. I'll help you." She shook her head, her eyes glistening. "Logan, I can't. People like you don't." She stopped herself, the words trembling on her lips. "People like me don't," what he pressed. Her silence spoke louder than anything. People like him didn't help people like her. Not in this city, not in this world that had been carved by lines of race privilege and power. One of the twins whimpered. Logan knelt eye level with the girls. "You shouldn't be out here," he said softly. "Not tonight. Not ever again." He straightened, pulled out his phone and called his driver. 5 minutes. "Bring the car around." Olivia tried to protest, but her voice faltered under the determination in his eyes. She had no strength left to resist. When the black sedan rolled to the curb, Logan lifted one of the girls into his arms. Her tiny hands gripped the collar of his suit, leaving faint streaks of dirt on the pristine fabric. Olivia held the other child close as they slid into the warmth of leather seats. The city blurred past the windows as they drove toward Logan's mansion on the Upper East Side. Olivia stared out into the darkness, her reflection ghost-like against the glass. The contrast between the glittering skyline and the memory of cardboard nights was unbearable. For Logan, every stolen glance at her told a story he could not yet comprehend. This was not the Olivia he remembered, the confident, radiant girl who had faced down the cruelty of teenage whispers about her race with unshakable pride. Life had crushed that fire into embers, and yet beneath the exhaustion, he still saw her. When the car pulled up before the wrought iron gates of his mansion, Olivia froze. The illuminated garden, the marble steps, the polished brass handles, everything screamed of a world that had never welcomed her. "You don't have to do this," she whispered. Logan turned to her, his expression unyielding. "No more arguing. Tonight you and your daughters are safe. Tomorrow we'll figure out the rest." The front door opened to reveal Mrs. Harper, the housekeeper, her polite smile faltering as her eyes swept over Olivia and the children. The hesitation was subtle, but Olivia felt it like a dagger, the silent judgment of being a black woman stepping into a white man's palace. Inside, the warmth of the crackling fireplace should have eased Olivia's tension, but instead it magnified her unease. Her daughters curled up on the sofa, their small bodies finally relaxing into sleep. Logan watched them, his thoughts racing. He had everything: wealth, power, reputation. But none of it mattered as much as the sight before him. The girl he had once loved, broken by a world too cruel to see her worth. For the first time in years, Logan Bennett felt powerless. And for the first time he knew that power wasn't what Olivia needed. She needed someone who would finally stand by her side. The morning sun slipped through the curtains of Logan's mansion, gilding the room in a soft light. Olivia sat at the edge of the bed, her daughters still asleep beside her. Their breathing was steady, their small faces untroubled, but her own chest was tight with unease. She had not slept. The silence of the night had given way to memories she had tried to bury. High school. The crowded hallways, the cliques, the whispers that clung to her like shadows. Olivia Carter had been one of only a handful of black students in a school where wealth and whiteness defined status. She remembered the stares, the smirks, the muttered insults disguised as jokes. Scholarship kid, too loud, too dark. Logan had been there too. A quiet boy back then, awkward but kind. He had looked at her differently than the others, never mocking, never cruel, but always distant. He had wanted to speak, she could see it in his eyes, yet he never did. Not when the jocks laughed about her hair. Not when the cheerleaders whispered about who would ever date someone like her. And not when she needed an ally the most. She remembered the sting of isolation. The cafeteria where tables were invisible fences. The classrooms where teachers praised her intelligence but quietly lowered expectations, as if brilliance from her was an exception, not the rule. She carried those scars into adulthood wounds that shaped every choice she made. Downstairs, Logan sat in his office, his hands folded over a mug of untouched coffee. He thought about the girl Olivia had been, bright, confident, determined. He had admired her from afar, even loved her, but back then he hadn't had the courage to stand up against the tide of cruelty. He had chosen silence, and that silence, he realized now, had cost Olivia far more than he had ever imagined. When Olivia finally joined him at the breakfast table, her posture was guarded. She thanked him for the food, but her eyes avoided his. The twins ate eagerly, delighted by the spread of fruit and pastries, but Olivia's appetite was absent. Olivia Logan said gently once the children had gone off with Mrs. Harper, "I want to understand. What happened after high school? You were always so strong, so full of life." She set her fork down, her hands trembling slightly. "Strong doesn't mean untouched. Do you have any idea what it was like for me? Every day a reminder that I didn't belong, that my skin made me different." Logan swallowed hard. "I knew. I saw things. You just stayed quiet." She cut in, her voice sharp but not unkind. "You think I didn't notice? You looked at me like you cared, but when it mattered you said nothing. Do you know how that feels? To be invisible when the world already treats you like you don't matter?" Her words hit him harder than any accusation. He lowered his gaze, guilt settling heavy in his chest. "You're right," he admitted quietly. "I should have said something. I should have stood beside you. I was a coward." Olivia looked at him for the first time, her eyes wet with unspoken pain. "That cowardice, Logan, is why I stopped believing in people like you. People who had the power to make a difference, but chose comfort instead." The silence stretched thick with decades of regret. Logan leaned forward, his voice firm. "I can't change the past, Olivia. But I can change what I do now. I don't want to fail you again." For a moment, Olivia searched his face, looking for insincerity, for pity. But she found none, only a man wrestling with his own ghosts, desperate for a second chance. She exhaled slowly, her shoulders slumping. "We'll see, Logan. Words are easy. It's actions that matter." Her daughter's laughter echoed from the garden, breaking the heaviness between them. Olivia rose from the table, her back straight, her pride intact despite everything. And Logan knew then that winning her trust would require more than money, more than promises. He would have to confront the same prejudices that had broken her spirit and prove that he was not the same boy who had once stayed silent. This was only the beginning. The afternoon light slanted across the mansion's polished floors, but Olivia stood near the doorway as though it were a prison gate. Her daughters Harper and Hazel clutched at her dress, their wide brown eyes filled with a fragile hope she could not share. Logan stood across from her, his hands resting in his pockets, his gaze steady. "You don't belong out there," he said, nodding toward the cold world beyond the front steps. "You and the girls need safety food warmth. Stay here. Olivia shook her head, her jaw tight. I can't. You don't understand. I understand enough, Logan countered, stepping closer. I saw you on that sidewalk. You would have spent another night in the cold, with children. Olivia, I won't let that happen again. Her eyes flashed with something between anger and despair. You think this is just about poverty? About hunger? No, Logan. It's about dignity. You don't know what it's like to have people look at you, see your skin, and decide you don't deserve to stand beside them. He faltered, caught by the force of her words. I've been rejected in job interviews the moment they saw me, she continued, her voice trembling. I've been denied apartments, told they were already rented, while white families walked in right behind me and signed the lease. I've been reminded every single day that I don't belong in places like this. She gestured around the mansion, her tone sharp. And now you ask me to accept your charity, to let my daughters grow up in a house where even the housekeeper looks at us like we tracked dirt inside. Logan inhaled slowly. He had noticed Mrs. Harper's stiff politeness, the quick glance at Olivia's skin, the hesitation before serving her at breakfast. He had ignored it, telling himself it was nothing. But Olivia had felt it in her bones, the way only someone marked by generations of prejudice could. You call it charity, he said carefully, but I call it responsibility. I can't undo what the world has done to you, but I can try to give you and the girls something better. Olivia's laughter was bitter, a brittle sound that cracked in the air. Better or just temporary, until the gossip gets too loud, until your business partners start whispering about the black woman and her children living under your roof. Her words struck like blows, not because they were cruel, but because they were true. Logan had already heard murmurs, curiosity from neighbors, disapproval from certain colleagues. He had brushed them off, but Olivia was right. The weight of society's judgment was heavy, and she bore it more than anyone. I'm not afraid of whispers, Logan said, his voice low but firm. You weren't the one they mocked in high school, Olivia shot back. You weren't the one told you were lucky just to be allowed in the room, and you won't be the one they'll blame if this arrangement falls apart. It'll be me, always me. Her daughter stirred nervously at the tension, and Olivia crouched down, stroking their hair. Her voice softened. We'll be fine. We've survived worse. I can't take your help, Logan. I can't risk giving them hope just to see it shattered. Logan crouched too, his gaze level with Harper and Hazel. You don't have to survive anymore. You deserve to live. He looked back up at Olivia, his eyes burning with resolve. You don't get to tell me to walk away. Not this time. For a long moment, Olivia held his stare, torn between pride and desperation. Then, with a shuddering sigh, she whispered, You don't know what you're asking. Yes, I do, he replied softly. I'm asking you to trust me. Her silence was heavy, but she didn't move toward the door. The refusal was still on her lips, but it no longer had the strength it once carried. And Logan knew that though the battle wasn't won, the first crack had appeared in the walls she had built. The black sedan rolled smoothly through the wrought iron gates, past manicured hedges and a fountain that glittered beneath the setting sun. For Harper and Hazel, the sight was magical, their little faces pressed against the tinted glass, wide eyes taking in every detail. But for Olivia, it was suffocating. When the car stopped before the marble steps of Logan's mansion, she hesitated. Her daughters tugged at her hands, eager to follow the man who had lifted them out of the cold. But Olivia's body resisted. The house loomed over her like a monument to everything she had been denied: privilege, stability, respect. Logan turned back, offering his hand. Come on, it's just a house. She didn't take it. It's not just a house, Logan. It's your world. And it's not meant for people like me. He frowned but said nothing more, leading them inside. The entryway was flooded with golden light from a chandelier the size of a small car. Marble floors gleamed, reflecting their footsteps. Harper and Hazel gasped, whispering to each other as they clutched their mother's skirt. Olivia's throat tightened. She had worked as a cleaner in places like this, on her knees, scrubbing tiles invisible to those who lived there. Never as a guest, never as family. Mrs. Harper, the housekeeper, appeared in the doorway, her silver hair tied neatly back, her uniform pressed sharp. She froze for a fraction of a second as her gaze landed on Olivia and the girls. Her polite smile did not reach her eyes. "Mr. Bennett," she said smoothly. "I wasn't expecting company. They'll be staying here," Logan replied firmly. "Prepare a room for them, please." Mrs. Harper's lips twitched almost imperceptibly before she nodded. "Of course." Olivia felt the weight of that look. She had seen it countless times before, the mask of civility stretched over quiet disdain. Her chest burned, but she forced herself to stand tall. Later, as the fire crackled in the living room, Logan set food before them. The twins devoured their meals eagerly, their small faces lighting up with joy. Olivia, however, ate little. Her gaze roamed the room. The polished shelves of leather-bound books, the crystal vases, the paintings of men whose power had never been questioned. It was a gallery of whiteness of wealth built on foundations that had never included people like her. "You're safe here," Logan said gently, watching her. Olivia shook her head. "Safe. You think walls and locks keep us safe. Safety is walking into a store without being followed. Safety is applying for a job and knowing I'll be judged by my skills, not my skin. Safety is never something I've had, Logan. Not in this world." He swallowed hard. He had built his empire on the assumption that safety was purchased, secured, guaranteed by status. But Olivia's words revealed another truth. Safety was something she had never been allowed to claim. That night, when Mrs. Harper showed them to a guest room, Olivia noticed how the woman placed the extra blankets at the edge of the bed without making eye contact. She noticed, too, the way the housekeeper's smile widened when she turned to Logan, softening into genuine warmth. Lying awake between her daughters, Olivia stared at the ornate ceiling. The sheets were soft, the air warm, her children finally resting in peace. But her own heart was restless. She had stepped into a world that wasn't hers, a world that might never welcome her. And deep down, she feared that Logan, despite his promises, might one day realize that she didn't belong in it either. The next morning dawned clear sunlight spilling across the immaculate gardens outside. Harper and Hazel played on the carpet with a box of toys Mrs. Harper had reluctantly brought from storage. Their giggles filled the room, but Olivia's mind was elsewhere. Logan had been patient, waiting for her to open up. Now seated across the breakfast table, he leaned forward, his voice low but steady. "Olivia, I need to understand. How did it come to this?" She hesitated, staring into her coffee as though the dark liquid might swallow her words. For years she had carried her story alone, stitched together with shame and silence. Speaking it aloud felt like tearing open a wound that had never healed. But Logan's eyes didn't flinch, and part of her, the part that remembered the boy who once admired her from across a classroom, wanted him to know. After high school, she began, her voice brittle. "I thought life was finally opening up. I had dreams, college, a career, a life beyond the small town where everyone whispered about me. But then I met Jake Miller." Logan's jaw tightened. He remembered Jake, tall, charming, golden-haired, the kind of boy every teacher favored and every girl seemed to chase. He had been the embodiment of privilege, and he had known it. Olivia's eyes darkened with memory. "At first he was different. He made me feel seen. He said he didn't care about the color of my skin, that love was enough. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. But when I told him I was pregnant, everything changed." Her hands shook as she clasped them in her lap. "He told me his family would never accept me, never accept a mixed child. He said his future was too important to throw away. And then he left. Just like that." The room was silent except for the soft laughter of the twins in the corner. Logan clenched his fists under the table, his chest burning with anger. "He abandoned you. He abandoned them." Olivia nodded, her eyes glistening. "I begged him, Logan. Not for me, but for them. He wouldn't even look at me. He told me I was a mistake he refused to acknowledge." She drew a shaky breath. After that, doors started closing. Jobs I thought I had were suddenly no longer available. Landlords turned me away. Do you know what it's like to hear, "We don't rent to your kind," or worse, to see the way they looked at my babies like they were evidence of something shameful? Logan's throat tightened. He had heard stories of discrimination, but sitting across from Olivia, watching the tremor in her voice, he realized how distant he had been from its reality. He had lived in a world where money smoothed every obstacle. She had lived in one where skin color built walls she could never climb alone. They deserved a father, Olivia whispered, glancing toward Harper and Hazel. But all they got was the weight of his rejection. And She paused, swallowing hard. I lost everything trying to keep us afloat. The jobs, the apartment, the dignity. Until all that was left was survival. Her daughters ran to her, then their tiny arms wrapping around her waist. Olivia bent to kiss their foreheads, her tears falling into their hair. Logan rose slowly, stepping closer. Olivia, listen to me. You are not a mistake, and neither are they. Jake may have walked away, but I won't. Not now. Not ever. Olivia looked up at him, searching for cracks in his resolve. All she found was sincerity. And for the first time in years, she felt a flicker of something she had buried long ago, hope. Still, she whispered almost to herself, words are easy, Logan. But I've lived long enough to know the world doesn't forgive women like me for believing them. Logan met her gaze with quiet determination. Then I'll show you with actions. And in that moment, Olivia realized her past had returned not just to haunt her, but to demand a reckoning. The following days brought a fragile rhythm to Olivia's life inside Logan's mansion. Harper and Hazel explored the garden, their laughter echoing between marble columns, while Olivia tried to find her place in a house that wasn't hers. Logan gave her space, but watched closely as if afraid she might vanish at any moment. Yet outside those gates, the world had already begun to whisper. It started with the neighbors. Polite smiles stretched too thin conversations that paused when Olivia passed by with the twins. Then came the lingering stares at the grocery store when Logan accompanied them. Whispers followed them down aisles, questions disguised as curiosity. Is that his family? Those children don't look like him. One afternoon, while Olivia helped her daughters pick out clothes downtown, she noticed two women watching her. Their eyes flicked from her dark skin to Logan's pale hand resting lightly on Harper's shoulder. The women exchanged knowing smirks before one muttered not quietly enough, "Charity case." Olivia's stomach twisted. She wanted to walk away, but Harper tugged at her sleeve, proudly holding up a new dress. Olivia forced a smile for her daughter's sake, but inside shame burned hot. That evening, when they returned to the mansion, Mrs. Harper's cool tone cut sharper than usual. "The mail came," she said, placing a neat stack of envelopes on the counter. "Mr. Bennett, your colleagues from the firm, wrote. They're concerned about what Logan asked." The housekeeper hesitated. "About appearances." Her gaze slid toward Olivia and the twins, then back to Logan. Olivia's chest tightened. She had expected it, but hearing it aloud still pierced. She turned to Logan, her voice quiet but edged with steel. "Do you see? It's already starting. To them, I'm not a woman. I'm a stain on your reputation." Logan's jaw clenched. "Let them talk. They don't get to decide who belongs in my life." But Olivia shook her head. "You don't understand. They'll forgive you. You're white, wealthy, untouchable. But me, every whisper, every cruel word, it all sticks to me, to my daughters. And once they start, it doesn't stop." That night, Olivia sat at the window of her room, watching the city lights shimmer in the distance. Harper and Hazel slept peacefully, unaware of the storm gathering outside their safe haven. Olivia pressed her forehead against the glass, her mind a tangle of fear and defiance. She had fought so long to protect her girls from the cruelty of the world, but now that cruelty was seeping into this new life, threatening to poison it before it began. And deep down, she wondered if Logan truly understood what it meant to stand beside her, not just in private, but in a world eager to tear them apart. The mansion's walls gleamed with polished marble, but Olivia felt the weight of invisible chains every time she walked its corridors. Harper and Hazel laughed freely in the garden, their small voices carrying like music. But Olivia's steps were heavy, her smile forced. It wasn't the house itself that suffocated her, it was the eyes. Mrs. Harper's polite disapproval, the neighbors' watchful curiosity, the glances in town that lingered too long on her skin. Every gesture whispered the same message she had heard her entire life: "You don't belong here." At dinner one evening, Logan tried to lighten the mood. He spoke of business ventures, of trips he wanted to take the girls on, of possibilities for the future. But Olivia barely touched her plate. "Something's wrong," he said softly when the twins had gone upstairs. Olivia set down her fork with a clatter. "Of course something's wrong. Do you think I don't notice the way they look at me? At my children? Even your housekeeper can't hide her disdain." Logan leaned forward. "Then I'll replace her." "No." Olivia snapped, her voice sharp. "Firing one woman won't change the world. This is bigger than her, bigger than your neighbors or your colleagues. This is the air I've been forced to breathe my entire life." She rose from the table, pacing. Her hands trembled as words spilled out, words she had held inside for too long. "I've been followed through stores by security guards who assumed I was a thief. I've been passed over for jobs I was qualified for because my name didn't fit the company culture. I've been forced to smile when landlords told me they'd already rented the unit, only to see a white couple sign the lease a day later. Do you know what it does to a person? To live every single day being told you're less?" Logan's throat tightened. "I can't imagine what that feels like." "No, you can't." Her voice broke, though she fought to hold it steady. "And now in your world it's starting all over again. But this time my daughters are old enough to notice. Harper asked me today why the women in the store stared at us. How do I explain to a 4-year-old that it's because her skin tells people she doesn't belong?" Her words pierced the silence heavier than any argument. Logan stood, but Olivia held up her hand, stopping him from coming closer. "I'm tired of surviving," she whispered, "but I don't know how to stop. Every step I take feels like I'm walking on a stage waiting for the next insult, the next rejection. And no matter what you say, Logan, I'm the one who will always carry the burden, not you." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Logan's eyes glistened, not with pity, but with the dawning realization that love, no matter how genuine, would never erase the world's cruelty. Finally, Olivia sank into a chair, exhausted. Her voice softened. "I want to believe in what you're offering. I want my girls to have more than I ever did. But wanting doesn't erase the scars." Logan knelt beside her, his hand resting lightly on the table. "Then let me stand with you. Not above you, not in front of you, with you. I can't erase the past, Olivia, but I refuse to let your daughters grow up thinking they don't deserve the world." Her gaze met his, torn between distrust and a fragile spark of hope. For the first time, she didn't pull away. And though the struggle was far from over, Logan knew this was the moment Olivia had allowed him to glimpse the depth of her wounds and the possibility of healing. The storm broke sooner than Olivia expected. It began with a headline in a local business journal: "Millionaire Logan Bennett shelters former classmate and her children." The photo showed Logan stepping out of his car beside Olivia and the twins, their faces partially blurred, but still recognizable. The article praised his philanthropy, but dripped with undertones Olivia could not miss, undertones that reduced her to a charity project rather than a woman with dignity. Within days, Logan's office phone rang with concerns from investors. At dinner parties, colleagues pulled him aside with tight smiles and whispered advice. "You've worked too hard to throw it away on scandal. It looks unconventional." People talk, Logan, and always the unspoken truth beneath their words. "She doesn't belong in your world." One evening, Logan returned from a board meeting with his jaw clenched. Olivia sat in the living room braiding Harper's hair, while Hazel hummed softly beside her. The ordinary beauty of the scene should have brought peace. Instead, it only sharpened his resolve. "They want me to choose," he said suddenly. Olivia looked up, her hands freezing mid-braid. "Choose what? Between my reputation and you." His voice was steady, but his eyes carried the weight of betrayal. "They think you'll ruin me." Olivia's chest tightened. She had known this was coming, had warned him of it. Still hearing the words aloud cut deeper than she expected. "And what did you tell them?" Logan crossed the room, kneeling so he could meet her gaze. "That there's no choice to make." Her breath caught. "Logan, you don't understand. No, Olivia." His voice hardened. "I do. I understand that for too long, I've lived for other people's approval. I let silence protect me in high school when I should have stood up for you. I let fear dictate who I was. I won't make that mistake again." Her throat burned with unshed tears. "You'll lose everything. Then I'll rebuild," he said simply. "But I won't rebuild without you. The girls looked between them, too young to understand, but sensing the gravity in the air. Olivia brushed Harper's cheek gently, her hands trembling. "Do you know what it means, Logan? To stand with me not just here but out there, every eye on us, every whisper against us." "Yes," he said, though he knew he could never fully grasp the cost. "And I don't care. Let them talk. Let them walk away. My world means nothing if you and the girls aren't in it." For the first time since she had entered his house, Olivia's defenses faltered. She searched his face, looking for cracks for hesitation. But there was none. Only determination. That night, as the city pulsed beyond the mansion walls, Logan Bennett made his choice. Not the easy one, not the safe one, but the only one that mattered. And Olivia realized that perhaps for the first time in her life, someone wasn't just standing over her, or for her, but with her. The night air carried a sharp bite as Logan parked his car outside a dimly lit bar on the edge of town. Olivia sat rigid in the passenger seat, her fingers knotted in her lap. She hadn't seen Jake Miller in years, but the memory of his voice, the careless cruelty, the finality with which he had abandoned her, still echoed in her mind. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Logan asked quietly. Her throat tightened, but she nodded. "I need to. For me. For the girls." Inside the bar smelled of stale beer and regret. Jake was slouched in a corner booth, his once golden hair dulled, his frame softened by years of indulgence. When he saw Olivia, his eyebrows lifted in surprise, though his smirk quickly returned. "Well, look who it is," he drawled. "Didn't think I'd ever see you again." Olivia's stomach churned. "We need to talk, Jake." Jake leaned back, his eyes flicking briefly to Logan. "You brought him?" "What couldn't face me alone?" Logan's jaw clenched, but he remained silent, letting Olivia lead. Her voice was steady, though her hands trembled. "You walked away when I needed you most. You abandoned your daughters before they even took their first breath. And now they're old enough to start asking questions. They deserve answers." Jake laughed, bitter and hollow. "Answers. What do you want me to say, Olivia? That I was scared? That my family told me I'd ruin my life if I stayed with you? You think I'd throw away my future for some teenage mistake?" Logan shot forward, his fist slamming against the table. "They are not a mistake," he growled. The bar fell silent for a moment as heads turned. Jake flinched, but the smirk lingered. Olivia placed a hand on Logan's arm, steadying him. Her eyes never left Jake's. "You can call me a mistake if it helps you sleep at night, but don't you dare reduce Harper and Hazel to that. They are beautiful, brilliant, and they will never need you." Jake's smirk faltered, replaced by a flicker of unease. "So what, you came here just to yell at me?" Olivia shook her head. "No! I came here to tell you this. You don't exist to us anymore. You will never again hold power over me or my daughters. I won't let your cowardice define their worth." Jake opened his mouth, but Logan leaned across the table, his voice low and deadly calm. "You had your chance. You wasted it. If you ever come near Olivia or the girls again, you'll answer to me." The finality in his tone left no room for argument. Jake looked away suddenly, small in the dim light. Outside, Olivia inhaled the crisp night air, as though surfacing from underwater. For the first time in years, the shadow of Jake Miller no longer loomed over her. She turned to Logan, her voice trembling with both relief and exhaustion. "It's over, truly over." Logan met her gaze, his eyes steady. "No, Olivia. It's a beginning." And as they drove back toward the city lights, Olivia realized he was right. The past had finally been confronted, and for the first time she felt free to imagine a future unchained from its weight. At first it was a murmur, an article in the society pages, a whisper at a charity gala. But soon the murmurs became a chorus. Olivia's presence in Logan's life was no longer just gossip, it was news. A glossy magazine published a spread, "The Mystery Woman in Bennett's Mansion." The photo showed Olivia holding Harper's hand on the front steps, her dark skin contrasted against the marble backdrop. The headline praised Logan's generosity, but beneath the words lay venom, charity scandal, curiosity, packaged as kindness. The phones at Bennett Enterprises rang nonstop. Some investors expressed concern. Others were less polite. "This isn't good for business. She's not one of us." One partner even threatened to pull out of a deal unless Logan cleaned up his image. At the supermarket, Olivia felt the sting of eyes tracking her every move. A cashier's smile slipped when Logan placed his hand on Olivia's back. A woman behind them muttered under her breath, "Of course he'd pick one like her." But the harshest blow came online. Social media posts spread quickly grainy photos of Olivia and the twins, captions laced with both pity and cruelty. Some comments called her a gold digger. Others questioned the paternity of the girls as if their brown skin was proof of shame. Olivia sat on the edge of her bed one night, scrolling through the torrent of hate. Her hands shook as she read the words. "Unfit, doesn't belong, ruining him." She dropped the phone onto the covers, her chest heaving. When Logan entered the room, he found her staring at the wall, her face pale. "Olivia, what's wrong?" She pointed to the phone, her voice breaking. "They're tearing me apart. They don't even know me, and still they hate me." Logan picked up the phone, his eyes narrowing at the screen. "Then they'll learn." Olivia shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "You don't get it. This is what it means to be me, to be a black woman in your world. No matter what I do, no matter how hard I fight, there will always be people who see me as less." Her words pierced him. He sat beside her, taking her trembling hands. "Then let me carry some of that weight with you. They can come after me too." "But they won't," she whispered bitterly. "You'll survive the scandal. You're white, wealthy, untouchable. They'll forgive you. I'll always be the one left bleeding." Silence stretched between them, heavy as stone. Logan's grip tightened. "Then I'll bleed with you." Olivia turned to him, startled. His eyes were fierce, his voice unyielding. "I won't let them define us. I won't let them tell Harper and Hazel that their worth is less than anyone else's. If standing beside you costs me everything, then so be it." For a long moment, Olivia searched his face, looking for the shadow of doubt. But she found none. And though the world outside sharpened its knives for the first time, Olivia felt that she wasn't standing alone against it. The days that followed were heavy with tension. Outside the mansion, Olivia was still the subject of whispers, her face splashed across gossip columns, her name twisted into cruel headlines. But inside those walls, she found her anchor, Harper and Hazel. One morning, as the storm of publicity raged, Olivia sat on the floor of the playroom. The twins surrounded her with crayons and construction paper, their small fingers smudged with color. Hazel held up a crooked drawing of their family, 3 figures holding hands under a bright yellow sun. Olivia traced the lines with trembling fingers, her throat tightening. "Who's this?" she asked softly. "Mommy, that's you," Harper said proudly, pointing to the figure with curly hair. "And that's me and Hazel, and that's Mr. Logan." The girls giggled, their laughter bubbling with innocence. Olivia's eyes blurred with tears. To them, the world was simple. Love was enough. Family was chosen. They didn't yet understand the ugliness waiting beyond the gates. That night, as she tucked them into bed, Harper whispered, "Mommy, why are people mean to you?" The question struck like lightning. Olivia's chest ached as she brushed her daughter's hair back. Sometimes people don't understand what's different. They think it makes them better. But it doesn't. It just makes them smaller. Hazel yawned, her small hand clutching Olivia's. "But you're strong, Mommy." Olivia kissed their foreheads, her tears soaking into their curls. In that moment, she realized the truth. No headline, no whisper, no slur could ever break her as long as she had them. Downstairs, Logan found her sitting alone, staring out at the garden. He sat beside her without a word until she finally spoke. "I've spent so much of my life fighting to prove I deserve space in this world. But when I look at them, they remind me I don't have to prove anything. I just have to be their mother. That's enough." Logan's voice was quiet but firm. "It's more than enough. It's everything." For the first time in weeks, Olivia smiled, not because the world outside had softened, but because she knew her daughters gave her the strength to face it, and that strength she realized was greater than any prejudice. Weeks passed, and slowly a new rhythm settled into Olivia's life. The gossip had not vanished, but the noise dulled when she refused to disappear. Harper and Hazel thrived, running through the gardens, filling the mansion with drawings and laughter. Their joy was a constant reminder of what mattered. One morning, Logan invited Olivia into his study. On the desk lay a neat stack of brochures, universities' night classes, vocational programs. "I know you've been thinking about work," he said gently, "but what if we thought bigger education? A career that's yours, built on your terms." Olivia's brow furrowed. "Logan, I can't go back to school. I'm a single mother with 2 little girls. My time belongs to them." He slid the brochures closer. "That's why I want to help. I'll cover the costs, arrange childcare. You've given everything to survival, Olivia. Now it's time to build a life." Her instinct was to refuse. Pride surged, the same pride that had carried her through years of rejection. But then she remembered Harper's question. "Mommy, why are people mean to you?" And realized she wanted her daughters to see a future where she wasn't bowed by struggle, but lifted by possibility. The next day, Olivia enrolled in evening courses. Walking into the classroom for the first time, she felt the old sting of being the only black woman in a sea of white faces. But this time she didn't shrink. She sat tall, her daughters' voices echoing in her heart. "You're strong, Mommy." Logan quietly supported her every step. He rearranged his schedule to pick up the girls when classes ran late. He listened patiently as Olivia ranted about assignments and exams. More than once, she caught him watching her with pride as she hunched over textbooks at the dining room table, determination blazing in her eyes. But the world beyond was less forgiving. At a dinner hosted by one of Logan's partners, Olivia accompanied him for the first time. She wore a simple black dress, her curls pinned back, her presence poised yet nervous. The room fell into a hush as they entered. One woman leaned toward another, whispering behind a wine glass. A man cleared his throat and avoided eye contact. Olivia's chest tightened, but she lifted her chin. When introduced, she offered a firm handshake, her gaze unflinching. Some smiles were strained, others cold. But one executive's wife, a woman of color herself, gave Olivia's hand a squeeze and whispered, "Don't let them dim you." Later that night, back at the mansion, Olivia sat quietly while Logan poured her tea. "You were incredible," he said softly. "I felt like I was drowning," she admitted. "But you didn't sink," he replied. "You stood tall. And every person in that room will remember it." For the first time, Olivia believed him. This wasn't charity. It wasn't pity. It was a beginning, fragile, difficult, but hers. The weeks of cautious progress came crashing down with a single phone call. Logan was in his office when his sister Claire arrived unannounced. She was polished elegant and carried the air of someone who had never known what it meant to be refused. "Logan," she began, her voice clipped, "we need to talk about Olivia." He braced himself. "What about her?" Claire's eyes narrowed. "Do you realize what people are saying? Investors are pulling back. Invitations are being rescinded. And for what? A woman who will never be accepted in our world." Logan's temper flared. "She is my world." Claire's lips pressed into a thin line. "Then you're blind. She's using you. Do you think it's a coincidence that the press knows every detail of her past? Someone's feeding them information. And it isn't me." That evening, Olivia found Logan distant. He avoided her gaze, his answers curt. Finally, she cornered him in the study. "What's wrong?" He hesitated, then blurted, "Someone's leaking stories to the press." "Claire thinks it's you." The accusation landed like a knife. Olivia's chest tightened, anger and heartbreak surging together. "You think I would humiliate myself, my daughters, just to make headlines? I don't know what to think," he admitted, his voice low, conflicted. Tears welled in her eyes. "After everything I've told you, everything I've survived, you still doubt me." The silence was unbearable. Olivia grabbed her coat and stormed into the night, the mansion's doors slamming behind her. For days she stayed away, crashing on the couch of a friend from her classes. Harper and Hazel missed Logan desperately, but Olivia's pride would not let her return. She had promised herself never to beg for space in a world that questioned her worth. Meanwhile, Logan investigated quietly. It didn't take long to uncover the truth. Claire herself had leaked the stories, hoping to sever his ties with Olivia before his reputation collapsed. The betrayal cut deep, but it clarified everything. One evening, Logan showed up at Olivia's friend's apartment. She opened the door cautiously, her expression wary. "I was wrong," he said simply. "It wasn't you. It was Claire. She betrayed us." Olivia's eyes shimmered with both relief and lingering hurt. "And yet you still believed her." Logan stepped closer. "I believed fear of losing everything I'd built. But when you left, I realized none of it matters without you. I will never doubt you again, Olivia. Not when the world already doubts you every day." Her heart ached, torn between the sting of betrayal and the sincerity in his voice. Slowly, she let him in. Harper and Hazel rushed to hug him, their joy dissolving some of the tension. That night, Olivia realized trust wasn't a straight path, it was a battle. And though betrayal had left its mark, she was willing to fight for the chance of something greater. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers, polished silver, and the murmur of New York's elite. Logan had been invited to speak at a charity gala, and Olivia had agreed reluctantly to join him. It was her first time standing publicly at his side since the storm of gossip had broken. Whispers rippled the moment they entered. Eyes followed Olivia, her skin a striking contrast against the sea of pale faces and diamond-studded gowns. She felt the weight of centuries of judgment pressing down on her shoulders. During dinner, Logan leaned close. "You don't have to stay," he murmured. But Olivia straightened her spine. "No, I do. For me. For them." Her eyes flicked toward where Harper and Hazel were waiting at home, too young to be in such a room, but old enough to one day learn what had happened here. When Logan was called to the podium, he spoke with his usual precision, thanking donors, outlining projects, winning polite applause. But then, unexpectedly, he stepped aside. "Tonight, I want to give this stage to someone who has taught me more about courage than anyone I've ever known." Olivia froze. Her pulse hammered as Logan gestured toward her. Olivia Carter. For a moment she thought of refusing, but then slowly she rose. The room hushed as she walked to the microphone, each step heavy with history. She took a breath. "Most of you don't know me. To many, I'm just a headline. A woman with 2 children described as a charity case, a scandal, a problem." Her voice wavered, but she pressed on. "What those headlines never say is this: I am a mother. I am a student. I am a woman who has fought every day to prove my worth in a world determined to deny it." A ripple of discomfort moved through the crowd, but Olivia's gaze swept across them steady and unflinching. "When you look at me, you may see difference, but difference does not mean less. My daughters Harper and Hazel will grow up hearing whispers about the color of their skin, but they will also grow up knowing their worth is not defined by prejudice. It is defined by love, by resilience, by the unshakable truth that they belong." The silence in the ballroom was thick, but it was no longer hostile. It was reverent. Even the sharpest whispers had stilled. Olivia's voice softened. "I am not here for your pity. I am here as proof. Proof that the labels you place on people cannot erase their humanity. Proof that no matter how loud prejudice shouts, it can never silence dignity." She stepped back, her hands trembling, her chest rising and falling with emotion. Logan was already there, steadying her with his presence. The applause that followed was hesitant at first, then grew louder, spreading across the room until it filled the air like thunder. For Olivia, it wasn't about their approval. It was about her own affirmation spoken aloud, carved into the silence impossible to erase. That night as they left the gala, Olivia felt something she hadn't in years. Not just survival, not just hope, but victory. The mansion was quieter now, though not empty. The noise of the outside world still drifted in headlines, rumors, opinions. But inside, Olivia felt something stronger than silence. She felt belonging. Harper and Hazel had settled into a rhythm of laughter and routine. They ran to Logan when he came home, their little arms wrapping around him as though he had always been theirs. At night, Olivia would watch them fall asleep with a peace she had once thought impossible. Yet Olivia knew the struggle was far from over. Prejudice did not vanish with applause or a speech. It lingered in the shadows, in the comments whispered behind her back, in the opportunities she still had to fight for, in the way strangers measured her worth against the color of her skin. One evening, she and Logan sat on the terrace overlooking the city. The skyline glowed restless and alive, but the air between them was calm. "You've lost business," Olivia said quietly. "Friends, even family, all because of me." Logan turned to her, his expression steady. "No, all because of them, because they couldn't accept love that doesn't fit their narrow world. And if that's the price, then it's worth paying." Her throat tightened. "I don't want to be the reason you lose everything." He reached for her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. "You're not the reason I lose. You're the reason I win. You, Harper and Hazel, you've given me a life no amount of money could buy." Tears filled her eyes, but they were not from sadness. For once, they were born of gratitude, of the slow realization that after years of being unseen, she was finally cherished. Weeks later, Olivia stood before a small classroom presenting a project she had poured herself into. When the professor praised her work, she felt the sting of doubt fade a little more. Each step she took in her education was a step toward rewriting her story, not as a victim of circumstance, but as a woman shaping her own destiny. At night, she told her daughters stories of resilience, not fairy tales but truths. She told them about their grandmother, who had scrubbed floors so Olivia could finish school. She told them about women who had marched, protested, and refused to be silent. And she told them that their own voices would one day join that chorus. Logan often listened quietly, a soft smile on his lips. He knew Olivia's journey was not just about them, it was about generations. On the day Harper and Hazel brought home their first school drawings of family, Olivia pinned them to the refrigerator. 4 figures stood side by side, 2 little girls, a tall man with pale skin and a mother with dark curls. Above it, in bright crayon letters, was a single word: home. Olivia stared at it for a long time, her chest swelling with something she had fought for all her life. Not perfection, not acceptance from the world, but a place where she and her daughters were safe, loved, and free to dream. She turned to Logan, who was watching her with quiet devotion. "This isn't the end, you know. The world will keep testing us." He nodded. "Then we'll keep fighting, together." Olivia smiled, her voice steady. "Yes, together." And as the city pulsed beyond the windows, Olivia Carter finally believed not in a perfect ending, but in a future worth living.